Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It's truly an honor to be with you here tonight. My name, as he said, is Tatum Prophet, and I'm a senior here at Bowling Green State University, pursuing a bachelor's degree in business administration, specializing in accounting. I'm also heavily involved in several student organizations that allow me to pursue my passions outside of the classroom. And one of the most impactful aspects that I've experienced while engaging with the environment of a public university like this one is the convergence of individuals from all different walks of life. United in our pursuit of higher education, our differences are applauded, welcomed, and even encouraged. However, I've witnessed the divide along political, religious, and societal lines just one step outside the classroom. In a world so divided by preconceived notions and belligerent disagreements, fostering a community that can engage in more constructive and open-minded discussions is crucial to exercising our democratic agency to its fullest potential. Now, I wouldn't consider myself an expert on democracy, but as an active observer and participant within one, I want to step out of my comfort zone and challenge others to do the same. One of the greatest privileges of democracy is that every person gets a voice, and I'm here tonight to use mine. Now, the title of this talk may sound super technical. Convergence insufficiency sounds like $2 million words, don't they? And many of you may or may not have chosen to attend this particular session solely based off your initial reaction to reading or hearing those words somewhere. Your assumptions, expectations, and opinions may have been set from the moment you crossed the threshold into this room. But I want to take just a moment and elaborate on the driving inspiration behind this small phrase that I knew would have to make such a critical first impression. A few months ago now, I was having some problems with my eyes, and I ended up at the eye doctor because of it. Sometimes it felt like there were these blind spots in my vision, and I would get frequent headaches while I was at work, which I initially attributed to the long hours I was spending in front of a screen. So I get to the doctor, I tell them my symptoms, they run their tests, and the result? There appeared to be a misalignment between my eyes. The optometrist went on to explain that at certain distances in my vision, my eyes did not naturally meet or converge. This would require the muscles in my eyes to work harder and even strain to turn my vision inward and get them to align. And the fatigue of these muscles would be what would cause these blind spots and these headaches. Now, it's not a critical condition, more like a minor annoyance, but unfortunately, there was no easy cure or treatment. But I returned home after the appointment and, like all good non-students of science, began conducting my own research. And after a while, I uncovered another name for this condition, as well as a potential treatment that the doctor had not mentioned. It was considered a convergence insufficiency between my eyes, and there were preliminary studies performed that showed promising results for improvement. What was the treatment? Pencil push-ups. It was a daily exercise to work the muscles in your eyes and strengthen them so that fatigue would not cause the blind spots and the headaches. Now, shortly after I conducted my incredibly scientific research, I turned my attention to my Outlook inbox, and I came across the speaker application for this very TEDx event. After nearly dismissing it, I sat there and I thought for a moment, well, my eyes might just be onto something about our democracy here. And that's 100% a true story. I don't know how I got there, but I did, and here we are. Because like I said, I am not, nor do I claim to be, an expert or any kind of authority on democracy. And yet, that is where I believe the value of my perspective is derived. I am just like each and every one of you, an active participant in a diverse community, and I'm telling you tonight that your perspective matters. But now that you know how we got here, I wonder if any of your perceptions, expectations, or assumptions about my talk tonight have changed. Because so often our preconceptions can quickly turn into misconceptions that lead to misunderstandings and missed opportunities for dialogue. You see, just like my eyes struggle to naturally meet in the middle, our natural disposition as both a smaller community and a larger society is a similar misalignment. If you were to spend 2 minutes on any social media platform or news outlet, I'm confident that you would draw a similar conclusion that we are a society inclined to talk past one another rather than with one another. This is not engagement. It's active ignorance. This is a convergence in sufficiency. But the reality is that everyone has their own TED Talk. Each and every one of you have a unique perspective full of experiences and insight with the potential to contribute to constructive, intelligent dialogue. But we, as democratic participants, must do a proverbial political pencil push-up, flex our alignment muscles, if you will, and choose to purposefully engage. Now, when I say align, you may think that I'm denoting agreement, but I want to pull the more literal definition of the word align for this context, which is to be in the correct relative positions. Because I am not proposing by any means that the solution to our hyperpolarized political landscape and dialogue is for us to all just drop our opinions and get on the same side of every issue. As nice as that might seem, we all know that's not practical. I most certainly don't believe it to be possible, and it most importantly negates the very underpinnings of democracy. Because I'm not here tonight to tell you how you should think. I'm just here to tell you that you should. When I say alignment, I want you to think back just a few moments ago to the eyesight analogy. For my eyes to align, it means they focus on the same focal point in my field of vision. They come together. Now, transpose that onto our political dialogue. For our actions to even be considered dialogue, we have to come together and willingly enter an exchange of ideas. And the cool thing is, our eyes don't see the exact same thing. If you, for just a moment, start winking, first your right eye and then your left, some of you getting it, yeah, you'll realize you get two very slightly different images or perspectives. Now, if you'll humor this analogy for a moment longer, imagine that we are all eyeballs in the head of democracy, although that many eyeballs could make for a pretty scary monster. So imagine Monsters, Inc., the big purple guy with all the eyeballs when he goes to scare the kids. You know what I'm talking about. But if we are all eyeballs, we all have a unique line of sight or perspective for viewing whatever it is that's in front of us. And when combined, they bring into focus the full picture. Let's transpose it once again like this. Dialogue, for us as individuals, as a community, and as a society, does not require us to agree, but what it does require is for us to align in the correct relative positions, our unique and beautifully differing perspectives into the same conversation. What are these correct relative positions, you may ask? Well, to answer that, I want you to imagine a perhaps more conceivable analogy. Say we have two actors in the cast of a movie. The next scene we're going to film is a conversation between them in person, and we place them on two different sets in two different locations and say, action. They may execute their lines with perfection, but half of their performance will inevitably be missing. These are the incorrect relative positions. They may both be on sets for the same movie, but relative to one another and the dialogue at hand, they are not correct. For dialogue to happen, we must presently engage with both active listening and contemplative participation. Unlike a script with its predetermined responses, our conversation should be dynamic, taking into consideration what the other person presents, not preset to ignorance. Because how do you know that you disagree with someone if you never even hear what they have to say? Consider that for a moment. What predisposes our disagreement? I believe it all boils down to two things: intentionally weaponized ignorance and fallacious thinking. Now you might be asking, well, what do you mean by weaponized? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Ignorance is weaponized when it is used to justify demeaning others, whether that's their opinion, their perspective, or even their identity themselves, and to perpetuate division. How does it do this? By a simple refusal to listen. This all too common phenomenon is not that one can't listen, it's that they won't. And when you remove listening from the equation, you've lost half of the conversation. And this is where we see dialogue most often fall apart. As for the fallacies, I want to invite you back to my freshman year Introduction to Critical Thinking lecture, where I was first introduced to these terms. The most prevalent fallacies that I see in widespread political dialogues are the straw man, the ad hominem, and the appeal to ignorance. The straw man fallacy is the distortion of an argument to make it easier to refute and then proceeding to attack the distorted argument. Much like building a straw man, attacking it, and when you've inevitably beaten it, thinking you've done something, when in reality, you've not done anything. I'm sure you can see the misalignment here. One individual is addressing the issue at hand, while the other is attacking some unrelated, blurry, distant cousin to the actual issue. The ad hominem fallacy is a similar misalignment, in that the opponent diverts the argument into an attack on the other individual's character. Personal attacks undermine constructive conversation, detracting from the actual issues at hand. Both of these fallacies place their participants in two different arenas, on two separate stages, if you will. And from there, true dialogue can never happen. The appeal to ignorance fallacy is a more potent divergence from dialogue, in that claiming that something is true simply because it hasn't been proven false can stall progress. It closes the door on the development of ideas or solutions by denying evidence its rightful seat at the table. And it portrays a closed-minded attitude to differing perspectives and opinions. Now, the reason I bring these up is, firstly, my hope is that even as you're sitting here, you're thinking of things you've seen, things you've heard, maybe even things you've said that fit the bill for one of these snares of disengagement. But also, I hope that when you inevitably encounter them again, that you will pause just a brief moment and think a little harder about the dialogues that you participate in. It is critical in a successful, effective democracy to create environments where differing opinions are welcomed and explored rather than attacked. I briefly mentioned before that if everyone were impossibly in agreement about everything, we would lose the beauty and the privilege of democracy, the privilege to disagree. And the root problem of our polarized democracy today is not disagreement, it's misalignment. Misalignment in our dialogue and inability to hold meaningful discussions plagues our construct of democracy by portraying disagreement as an irreconcilable evil. It divides us all the way down, from our presidential debates to our day-to-day conversations. We have lost the ability to effectively, efficiently, and dare I say productively, disagree. We have lost our respect for our fellow man and woman and their inherent God-given right to hold their own opinions. And if you watch any of the fallacy-ridden debates and advertisements and smear campaigns of this current election season, this convergence insufficiency threatens to rip our political landscape apart. But all hope is not lost, because democracy starts with us. How? Simple. Listening, asking questions, avoiding assumptions. We all know how the saying goes about assuming. My invitation to you tonight is simple. Step out of your comfort zone. Doesn't have to be as grand as a TEDx stage. Engage with diverse opinions and exercise your democratic agency to its fullest potential. Every voice matters, and true democracy thrives on constructive dialogue and mutual respect. We may not be the ones running for office, but we, the people, vote for those that do. If we can change the way that our dialogue looks and sounds at a community level, the ripple effect through our entire system would be astronomical. Let's not just talk about democracy. Let's actively participate in it, one conversation at a time. The power is in our hands, and it's time we do something about it. Thank you.